Hey guys, welcome to week number 2. So I think I mentioned last week how these videos would work. I think I might add a little bit where maybe I talk for a bit about what went on outside of class stuff last week. I know I mentioned to you guys I went to see Hidden Figures. Was pretty good. I really liked it, and it was kind of an interesting portrayal. I mean, it was a movie, for those of you that don't know, Hidden Figures was about these 3 African American women that worked in NASA during the time of the, now this is before the moon landing. This was back when they were trying just to get men into space. We were in the space race with Russia, and we're trying to get our men, America anyway, was trying to get our men up into space first. And it turned out we didn't. They got Russian up in space first, but the US became the first country to have a man orbit the Earth. And so this was the story of these 3 African American women who worked in the basically computing department. This was before actual computers, when computers still took up an entire room. So they had people doing these very crazy mathematical computations that I can't even pretend to understand. But these 3 women faced discrimination, not just because they were African American, which was their first and foremost the thing that they were discriminated against by, but even within their own race, they were kind of put down because they were women. There was a great scene that I really liked where one of the women was at a church picnic and told a guy that she was interested in, that she worked at NASA, and she did all of these calculations for them, and he kind of laughed and said, "Sure you do," and she got ticked off with him and said, "I really do this kind of stuff." So it was really interesting to see that gender and race played a role for these women, and really relevant too, because the first man to orbit the Earth was John Glenn. So John Glenn was portrayed in this film, and he actually interacted with these women before he was taken up into space to go around the Earth. He was supposed to go around 7 times, I think it was, and he went around 3. And one of these women had to calculate where his re-entry point was and where he would land within a 20-mile margin of error, and she did. So it was really interesting. I highly recommend that movie. But on to other things. So my little divider here will send us into talking about what we did last week, which I personally had a lot of fun reading and watching your videos. So let's pause here and we will go on to talking about that. So last week we got to meet each other virtually in our introduction videos. I had quite a lot of fun watching those, getting to meet most of you, well, about half and half of the video responses. We got 4, and we were missing 2, so if the 2 of you that didn't get yours posted are watching this, go and get those up. If you watched last week's video, you know that there's a little loophole to my late work policy, and if you didn't, now you have a hint to go and watch last week's check-in video. But of the 4 of you that got your videos posted, 2 of you I knew already and 2 of you I didn't, so it was kind of fun for me getting to meet the 2 of you I did not know and getting to learn more about the 2 of you I did. It's kind of neat to see what this video introduction, or even just this online class, does to the personalization aspect, for lack of a better term. I think a lot of people believe online classes are fairly impersonal. You don't get to know people that well. But I'm finding that even people I already knew who are in my online classes are sharing things I did not know about them. So it's kind of fun and different for me. But the videos were quite a blast. We have, of the 4 of you that did it, we have 2 of you that are education majors. Mandy was debating her life her life's purpose, if she's going to be an education major, maybe not next semester. Kobe's music education, which is really exciting for me. I'm really looking forward to hearing more about what you plan to do with your music education. And then we've got Monique, who is a pre-nursing major, and Fuatino, I believe you are public administration. Sorry, Tino, public administration. So quite a difference in majors there. And we had some great stories that were getting shared about pageants and babies on the way, and got to see some scenery. You guys may have realized about, what time was it? Saturday, I think it was, when the videos were due. A couple people posted to our page that had found themselves at our page by my fault. I posted the wrong link on a course syllabus, and so they are not actually in our class, hence the reason their videos disappeared. But the 4 of you that posted, and hopefully 2 more people who will show up at some point, are actually here. So I got to see some backyards in Waimanalo, got to take a car ride with Mandy, and then stay in one place with Kobe and Monique. So really great job on the videos. I think compared to my other group, your guys' videos were much less awkward. I think you all really got into them. By the time you started, maybe about halfway through, it became more natural, it seems. Maybe I'm just making stuff up, but if you are having a hard time with the videos, I do assure you that, at least for me, they do get easier. I've been doing this kind of video online class thing for about a year, and when I first started, it was so odd, very odd. But it just starts to feel like you're talking to an actual person when you realize people are actually watching you. So, and I will say this is really informal stuff, so don't feel like you have to do multiple takes. I'm not going to grade you on how pretty your video is, how clearly you're speaking, as long as I can understand you for the most part. So for the journal last week, we jumped right into the theme for our course with watching Leave It to Beaver. We watched the very first episode ever made. Beaver gets spelled, and if you didn't figure it out by the end, spelled was the way Beaver would have pronounced expelled, as in expelled from school. So again, we had 4 posts here, and I went, if you didn't notice with the videos and the journals, I went ahead and responded to everyone's posting of everything. And I will say, don't count on this being a regular thing. As the semester gets further and further in and we all get busier and busier, the responses might drop to a handful every week. Those that say something that interests me and I feel inspired to respond to. So I will try not to respond to the same person all the time. We are a small class though, we're only 6. So it might happen in this class that the same handful of people get responded to all the time. But that doesn't mean I don't like you. It just means that I find something that I like from the same person every week. So I'll try to keep variety there, but don't hate me if I never ever respond to your posts. One other thing with the comments, know that I will never make a comment about the quality of your assignment. On the blog, the WordPress itself, I will never say like expand your ideas more. I will reserve those kinds of comments that for the privacy of grades. So when I post the grades for each assignment, then you will see a comment if I decide to post one, giving you some feedback on how you did. And if you didn't get a comment and you want to know why you got the grades you did, you can always email me and ask. So for the journal responses, I read everyone's and I responded to everyone's, and I found myself really inspired by Kobe's post because I felt it kind of hit on the same issues that everyone else was already talking to. We had some commonalities with a discussion of education and a lot of discussion of gender roles, because it's kind of obvious that was really played up in the episode with Mrs. Cleaver, or June Cleaver is her name, staying home. If you notice, she's always wearing these pearls and always in a dress. And even when she goes out, our only real clue that she's not staying inside is that she's putting on makeup. And Beaver sticks his head back in the door. Mom, are you going somewhere? Like it was unusual for her to leave the house, which it probably was. So a lot of you are picking up on the gender roles and the way that the woman was expected to stay within the privacy of the home. The man was expected to go to work. The relationship between the two brothers, where the younger one looked up to the older one and the older one supported the younger one. I believe even he tried to keep the younger one's best interests at heart, right? So Wally tries to help Beaver get out of the situation he's in, but when it worsens, he knows to go to the parents. So the family structure was another thing that a lot of you commented on, the way that families have changed. I know this was a key in Monique's post about the family roles and the way that families don't really work in the same way anymore. It was part of the end of Monique's response, with the family being more close-knit and together, and we don't see that too much today anymore. And then education was mentioned in at least a couple of them, if it wasn't the main idea. This was Mandy's post. Mandy, being the current education major, which may change again, talked about briefly the importance of education. And so I've always pondered this question, and even as a college instructor, you have to wonder, is maybe not education as we saw in the episode, elementary through high school, but college education is often linked as part of the American dream. You have to have a college degree in order to achieve the dream. And so I question this idea, is it really true? And so all of this, I thought, got really nicely wrapped up in Kobe's post, which was very questioning of the American dream. And so if you look at my comment to Kobe, I posed the question of, is it so much that we don't have the American dream anymore? It doesn't exist. It really is just a dream, or that it's constantly changing. If you think about it, Kobe made some really great points about how people have been traditionally, and perhaps still are, certain groups of people are excluded from achieving the dream if the dream is to be defined as the Leave It to Beaver, married with 2.5 kids, a dog, and living in a white picket fence house. I don't think that holds true for us anymore. Yet I don't know if we can really define what the American dream is as an exact science. I think it's very subjective now. And I would say part of that is because perhaps the American dream is always in a constant state of flux, always changing to accommodate changing values in our society. So Kobe specifically mentioned, if you have someone who's not heterosexual, you have someone who's in a same-sex relationship. Up until recently, they could not literally achieve the American dream if it was to be married. It's something they can achieve now, but it's, we're still incorporating that into society. So I don't know. And I've been watching a lot of HGTV too, if you're talking about home ownership as being part of the dream. There is this huge movement in housing called tiny housing, or having a tiny house, changing that idea of success being defined as the great big house with a white picket fence and all of that kind of stuff. Now the movement the tiny house movement is all about houses that are anywhere from like 200 to 400 square feet. The idea that materialistic stuff is not what's important anymore, because you have to be able to fit stuff into your tiny house. So it's the tiny house movement is changing our materialistic culture, perhaps. So I think that as we move forward in time, it's not that we can't achieve the American dream. I wonder if we're in this in-between period where it's trying to stabilize itself, and until we have a new American dream that is stable, then we will forever feel like it can't be achieved. I don't know, take it or leave it, what you guys think about that. But that is my thought, my inspiration, my ideas I drew from your guys' posts, and finishing with Kobe's to wrap everything up nicely. So this next part of the video, we will be talking about where we are going with these American Dream ideas, and what we're going to be starting this week with Ragged Dick, and first couple chapters in The Craft of Research. This week we are moving into our reading of our first novel. So we start Ragged Dick this week. So if you go to your syllabus and weekly schedule page for this week, the first thing that you'll notice is going to be, of course, watching this video. And then you're going to have two readings from Ragged Dick. The first one is actually a scanned copy of the introduction and preface to the hard copy version. So I know a lot of you either don't have your books or may have opted to not purchase the hard copy version of the text. So I've given you that introduction and preface. This is from the Signet Classics version of the book. Gives you some nice background into the author, the time period, and things like that. So do read it to get a little bit of an understanding of where we are, who is writing this, what purpose he might be writing for, things in his background that can really influence your interpretation of this novel. So there's a copy that you can get. It's linked on Laulima, also linked on our course page. So read that, I would suggest, obviously, before you start reading the book. And once you've read that, then we're going to jump into Ragged Dick with the first 50 pages or the first 7 chapters, depending on which version you're reading. So I have linked to the free e-text version on Gutenberg.org. I did receive an email this morning from someone saying that it did not work. I don't know if this was an isolated issue. I did send out the same link to my English 200, that's the face-to-face class I'm teaching this semester, and haven't heard anything, and I sent that to them last Thursday. So perhaps it's an isolated issue, but if you are having the same problem, I appreciate an email to let me know, and then I can try to remedy the problem. What I did was send out the direct link to this particular person, so it may be that I have to email everyone the direct link. Perhaps Laulima is not allowing it to work. So those first 50 pages really introduce us to the characters and get us into the first theme of that text that we'll be looking at in our assignments this week, and that's the idea of appearance, outward appearance versus inward character kind of thing in the text. So Ragged Dick is the first and foremost priority this week. Second priority is The Craft of Research. So this is the handbook that I showed you guys. So it's this guy, Craft of Research. We're reading pages 3 through 13, or part 1 prologue and chapter 1. So this is like an introduction to this text. We got the introduction to Ragged Dick, and now we got the introduction to Craft of Research. And so it's basically asking you questions like, what is research? Why do we do it? Why do we write research reports and that kind of stuff? So both of these readings this week get us into our next set of assignments. So our first assignment this week, depending on how you choose to tackle these, if you read Ragged Dick first, then you'll want to start with our video assignment. So this week what we're doing is picking up off of that appearance theme that I just mentioned a second ago. So if you look at the week 2 video or video week 2 page, I give you a little bit of background about where we're going with this. So in Ragged Dick, things aren't always as they appear. From the very first scene, we have Dick being judged by the Spruce Street porter as a young vagabond who is lazy and a thief. This quickly changes, however, when Dick proves himself to have some good in him when he proclaims that "you don't catch me stealing. Lots of boys does it, but I wouldn't." I gotta love the dialect in here. So what I'm asking you to do then is to build off of this theme from that example I just gave you and find more instances yourself where you see a conflict between a character's outward appearance and inner character. So I give you a big hint. Don't just stick with Dick if you're looking at these things. They apply to many other characters in the story. So feel free to look at minor characters that might have some of this apply to them, and basically pull out passages that you see this outward appearance versus inner character being examined in or demonstrated in. And then the second part of this, so first part is to find similar passages that show the same theme, read them and maybe give us a little bit of your explanation of how you saw that working. And then the second part is all about this idea of, again, outward appearance, but in a good way. So there is a passage you will get to on page 21, somewhere, I don't know how many chapters in this is, but Dick encounters Frank Whitney and his uncle, who goes by Mr. Whitney, and Frank's uncle, Mr. Whitney, describes Dick as looking honest and having an open face. And this is something I want you guys to think about. What does this even mean? How can Frank's uncle, Mr. Whitney, know what Dick is like from just looking at him? At this point, he doesn't really know this kid. He trusted him enough to let his nephew go out on the town with him in New York, of all places, which is, even in the 1860s, kind of hectic and perhaps not a very safe place. You'll see some incidences in the rest of the story that show what New York was like back then. So what I want you guys to think about in your video response then is, what does an open, honest face look like? And I want you to draw on your creative abilities if you have them, and if not, then draw on your research abilities, which we'll talk about for your next assignment this week, by either drawing a picture or finding a picture online of someone you would describe as honest. So drawing a picture, you can think of yourself as maybe a police sketch artist. Thinking about facial features, like the size of someone's eyes, the size of their nose, size of their mouth, shape of their eyebrows, the color of their eyes, their hair, their skin, shape of their face, things like that. Think about these details, even as you are looking for pictures online, if you choose to go that route. You can find a celebrity picture. Why might that celebrity be someone you believe to be honest? So this is not so much this celebrity has portrayed these kind of characters in films, although that might have some influence on you, but think more about just visual, the visual aspects of this honest face, rather than the prior knowledge you might already have about a person, right? Again, you want to put yourself in the same boat as Mr. Whitney would have been with Dick. He hadn't met him. He didn't know anything about his background. He's a street kid. Why would he have trusted Dick to go and take his nephew around town for a few hours? Okay? So again, you're either drawing me a picture or finding me a picture online of an honest person, a face you would describe as being honest. And then show us that picture. If you are tech savvy, you can somehow put a still picture in the middle of your video. If not, you can print up your image from online and hold it up to the camera. However you want to do this, I don't really care how technologically savvy you might be for this. But once you show us that picture, give us the description of why you think this person should be trusted. Again, eye color, hair color, shape of their eyebrows, size of their head, that kind of stuff. Weird things that we don't think about, but they're things we do subconsciously when we meet someone. How do we know that this is someone we should talk to and feel comfortable talking to before they even open their mouth to say anything to us? Okay, so that's your video response. I'm really looking forward to seeing what you guys come up with that one, and I'll tell you more about the science behind trustworthy faces next week when I do my review of what you guys talked about this week. But your second assignment for this week is based off of craft of research. So again, those first couple readings, the prologue of part 1 and chapter 1, are really basic about why we do what research is, why we do it, why we write reports about it. And they really make it seem as if research is something we only do in academics, when really it's not. We research all the time. And you're going to be sitting there watching this video going, I don't research all the time. I'm only researching because you're making me do it. But research is really any time you are looking up information. So you can be looking up a YouTube video on how to fix something in your house that's broken. You can be looking up a recipe on how to cook a new meal. You can be trying to do a Facebook search for someone you just met in one of your classes this week and you want to add them as a friend. All of that really counts as research, even though it doesn't seem like it. But what makes that kind of research different from what we do in academics is writing a research report. There are rules that you have to follow, a way you have to format your paper, the types of words you have to use, the way you have to structure your sentences, what information is valuable, what information is not. So when we do all of this kind of research report writing, which is what we'll be focusing on at the end of the semester, you enter into what's called a rhetorical community. And I'm taking this right off of my assignment post for this week. A rhetorical community is a group of people who share common interests, values, and goals. And that comes from Booth, Craft of Research, page 14. So for your journal response this week, I want you to think about those two things I just discussed. Think of a few times that you've researched something by your choice, not because I or another professor forced you into it. And just think about times you've researched over the last week or two. So you can go all the way back to Christmas. Maybe you were researching what to buy your son, daughter, little sister, little brother, whatever, big sister, big brother, something for Christmas. So you went to research it to figure out what to buy. That would count as an example in this case. Or I give you other ones, looking up an actor in a movie you watched, finding a long-lost friend on Snapchat, or researching whether or not to take this class with me, even though I don't really want to know what you researched. Okay? So tell me about at least 2 of these everyday research experiences. And then I want you to pick one and briefly report your findings in a way that speaks to a specific rhetorical community. So you're going to have to think about your audience in this case. Who would even care about whatever it is that you researched? So the rhetorical community you want to imagine can be anything, any community you think is relevant to this particular research. So if you're researching whether or not to take this class, it can be a group of students that are going to be taking English 200 in the next year or two, and you want to tell them whether or not you think they should take it with me or with someone else. If you're trying to convince a friend to go with you to a movie that you've been wanting to see, think about how you might convince them of going with you. If it's a horror movie and they hate horror movies, you really have to work hard. So what do you tell them to get them to go with you? Okay, so basically writing up a report, which a report can be a conversation that you might have, a report can be basically a review of a class, whatever you might want. Consider the values, interests, and goals that the rhetorical community you're reporting to might have and work them into your stylistic choices in your report of whatever you've researched. And then after you write that report, explain to me why you made those choices that you did. Why'd you use that specific term? Why'd you leave out certain information? Why did you use short or long sentences or have a bunch of different paragraphs? Okay, so all of this, I would say, try to accomplish it in 1 to 2 double-spaced pages, equivalent. And some of you were posting your journal responses last week and ran into issues with formatting. When I say the equivalent of 1 to 2 double-spaced pages, I mean equivalent because when you try to paste it into the comments box, the double spaces may or may not show up. So it can be frustrating, and it doesn't have to be formatted perfectly, because WordPress isn't going to let you do it. Okay, so that's this week's assignments. And we'll be getting into the nitty-gritty of this course starting this week. So I really look forward to hearing what you guys think about Ragged Dick, about research, and this starting point that we're beginning at, because we will definitely not be at this point by the time we get to that long paper at the end of the semester. So looking forward to seeing what you guys do this week, and I will see you in next week's video.